So how do we move people from being educated to actionable insights?
So first, I'm going to say this. So first, let's not think that the conversation is not action.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people haven't had a conversation about
Station.
this stuff for a long, 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 long time, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we live in a bubble. We live in
Mm-hmm.
whatever bubbles we live in. And so I am not I am a big believer that when someone says to me in the workplace, I've been at this organization for 20 years and I've never had a conversation about race and racism in
Mm-hmm.
the workplace, right? The fact that I got you from never having that to having that,
Yeah.
that's huge action.
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on that pendulum that will go from one end to the other.
Yes.
So I take, I am very comfortable in the incremental things that happen. Now, what
Mm-hmm.
I also know is that we're at different levels. So some people, the conversation, just getting people to the conversation
Mm-hmm.
is one thing. But from those conversations, I've also had people say, I went home because of the conversation I had at work. I went home and I had this conversation with my family, or I had this conversation with my teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things for action, what I tell people is pay attention to what you haven't paid attention to before. So
Mm-hmm.
when you go to the grocery store, see who's being talked to and who's not being talked to. See what tone is being used. See who's being dismissed. See who's being waited on happily, and and all of those. Because those things, once I bring it into your mind, then you have to decide what role will you play and what role have you played, right? So what is the conversation you're having or not having that you have just been on autopilot that now you have to check yourself? Because the minute that I begin to change you, then the change starts to happen around you, right? So we sometimes take this like we have to change the world, and the world changing the world becomes overwhelming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get to the place, well, there's nothing I can do, so I'm just not going to do anything. But if I say, but what can you do differently? And
Yeah.
if you have power, because a lot of this is conversation around privilege and power.
Mm-hmm.
If you have power, how are you leveraging your power for the good of someone else?